I'm Rajan Tayela.
I'm Colton.
And we're going to talk about Carl Jung's archetypes of the collective unconscious state. So Carl Jung, he was a German philosopher, and he wrote this really, really dense, complicated article about the collective unconscious. So Carl Jung theorized that this collective unconscious was a set of patterns that influence people's behavior that everyone has. And everyone has the same collective unconscious, and it exists when you're born, and it's the same for everyone. Although particular parts of it may influence different people in different ways, sort of the patterns are the same for every person. So Carl Jung specifically said, we seek the effective images and thought forms that satisfy the restlessness of heart and mind. We find the treasures of the East. So this is kind of a diagram that explains his thinking of how it worked. So this is the first person, this is the second person. So you can see the top of each pyramid is a person's consciousness, which is how they interact with things every day. And then there's the personal unconscious, which is someone's own memories or things that are personal to them but they're not quite aware of in everyday life. And then there's this collective unconscious, which still impacts people's actions and how they interact with the world, but not they aren't quite aware of how it works in the same way.
So with the collective unconsciousness within it, Carl Jung predicts that there are multiple, if not infinitely many, number of archetypes. An archetype is the unconscious manifesting itself in our everyday life. So a very common type are anima, animus, which is a mother or father. We hear lots about mothers and fathers in both religion, Mother Earth, and then as well other archetypes such as mermaids and fairies and whatnot, wood nymphs are all associated with the anima archetype as well. And Carl Jung describes this as universal images that have existed since the remotest of times. Carl Jung often talked about collective unconsciousness as almost an innate primordial sense that defines humans from animals, and that's why it's the base within all humans, below the personal unconsciousness.
So along with this idea of the collective unconsciousness, Carl Jung proposed there's this thing called individuation, which is essentially when someone is able to it's hard to understand exactly what he's trying to say, but take their unconscious, both their collective and personal unconscious, and kind of bring that into their conscious so that they're more aware of it and they are less influenced by it without their consent almost. So this is called individuation, and he kind of saw it as the process of becoming almost a true individual and being able to achieve your full potential in a way, if that makes any sense.
Individuation's combining both your conscious and your unconscious to be totally aware of who you are, and that makes you an individual. One example that we see of this in Dune is the Kwisatz Haderach, who is Paul could likely be, has the ability to see in both male and female paths, is very similar to the idea of individuation, that being able to connect both halves, you're able to see the whole entirely. And then Carl Jung's collective unconscious idea, and especially the archetypes, extend really far into religion. He likes to talk about it as much as, in his article, or his paper, he talked about it quite a bit. Jung believed that religions resulted from a set patterns and the desire to explain the world. So it's oftentimes things that we can explain, that we use religion to cover, is what he's saying, as well as that religions are simply, he calls them archetypal templates, sort of add one of these, and one of these, and what you've created is a new religion. Often a father figure, savior, or a flood, a deluge is very common in many religions. And so it's a base for all religions that Carl Jung uses the collective unconscious to explain.
Yeah, so you can see a lot of the same, archetypes, images, or patterns that we have in our unconscious that manifest themselves in these religions that, although they're different and come from different places, often have very similar, patterns amongst them.
And so, other connections to Dune that it makes. The Bene Gesserit, they're described as being able to look into their feminine past, almost like looking into their archetypes. They would be an example of the anima archetype.
Yeah, because you can almost see the Bene Gesserit as sort of like we discussed last class, the embodiment of sexuality. And so the anima is sort of that. It's how males embody sexuality in their unconsciousness. And additionally, we said already that Kwisatz Haderach, potentially able to look in both the feminine and masculine past, so sort of being able to access those archetypes and understand, what's going on, kind of, and then sort of achieving the individuation that I discussed earlier.
And then one other major connection between Carl Jung's collective unconscious and Dune is the Missionario Protectiva, legends or myths planted on planets for the protection of the Bene Gesserit by the Bene Gesserit. Jung describes switching from one religion to another, being accepting of these proposed ideas by the fact that people accepted the new as unthinkingly as they had rejected the old did not become a problem at the time. So when the Bene Gesserit planted a legend or a myth, as they did on Arrakis, that was revealed with Lady Jessica being given the Chris knife, is that the people would just accept these ideas and then they would grow among themselves on the planet, just left alone. And so, should we have questions?
Yeah. So these are works cited, and then here are some questions, just like to start discussion. So, what characters from Dune are representative from the anima archetype and why? So we kind of gave away the answer, but if you guys have seen anything that you kind of think embodies this. Okay, so something that we noticed at least was that the Bene Gesserit embody this a lot. Like we discussed, they, it's sort of embody sexuality in the Dune universe, right? And so the anima archetype is very specific to males in that it's what they perceive as sort of like the ideal sexuality for the female. And so the fact that the Bene Gesserit control all of that and are able to access like their past memories sort of leads them to be representative of this anima archetype. Yeah?
Then how do you think the Baron Harkonnen would be in this archetype, which is pedophilia and homosexuality and everything? Because you said the anima archetype is of man's ideal sexuality towards a woman. So what about Baron?
So that's kind of difficult to say. There's other archetypes such as the shadow, which is sort of like the all-encompassing enemy, bad force. So you can see the Baron is sort of a manifestation of that. It's sort of difficult to say with homosexuality and how that works with these archetypes. Maybe it's I don't really know how to explain that, if I'm completely honest.
I would say it's a historical limitation of Jung.
Yeah.
That he assumed heterosexuality. He also assumed masculinity as the primary kind of psychology that he's talking about. He says in the reading for today that masculinity is genetically dominant, which is a shaky, made-up claim. Yeah. So this is where some of his archetypes come from, these cultural assumptions. So I don't think he even worked in any kind of assumption about homosexuality. Given the time period he was in, he would probably read that as some kind of problem to analyze in his clinic because of the time that he's from. So, yeah, problems.
Yeah.
And then, can you guys think of anywhere throughout Dune so far that we find evidence of Carl Jung's collective unconscious, or the theory of it expressed through Dune?
I guess sort of like the being Jesuit. I guess it's not like the cult, but they all seem to share some, I don't want to say some knowledge, but they all, at least the way that what's her name? The housekeeper, the
Shadow names.
Shadow names, yeah. The way she seems to treat Jessica seems to imply that she seems to think that being Jesuit have some sort of collective power or collective knowledge.
Sure. I believe they refer to it as like connecting with the female past, something like female history. They're able to tap into all of it, and then we find that very similar to what Carl Jung was describing in collective unconsciousness.
It's worth talking about this concept for a second, that every single human being ever on the entire planet has some kind of concept or knowledge that they are born with and always carry with them. Because this is a weird idea, right? Does anybody have thoughts on this idea that every single human has some kind of psychic construction that they're born with? Ryan?
Collective unconscious, it kind of makes sense to think of it from a biological standpoint. Like, all people have like an innate concept of having parents and like a role model through parents. And so you can kind of see where his ideas of the collective unconscious came from if you look at our biology and our instinct.
I'd have to agree. The human condition itself is designed to be adaptable. You know, you're born into any possible environment on Earth and you can adapt to it, but you still have a set of things, instincts that you have to work off of, and that would be considered part of the collective unconscious.
Yeah. Though for Jung it goes beyond instinct into things like we all believe in a hero idea, right? Or we all believe in some kind of sexual female thing that is both threatening and alluring. That's the anima. I know.
It's difficult to say exactly, but I do think that you're correct in saying that Jung took like evolution sort of into perspective and these behaviors that we've been sort of bred to recognize, or patterns we've been bred to recognize throughout thousands of years humans have existed.
A lot of Jung's examples come from European Christian mystical history, even though he mentions the East a few times. Pretty much all of his every single examples come from Christian religious history, which suggests perhaps a limitation. He says even people have accused me of coming up with these as random ideas, and I swear they're not random. He comes from his own kind of cultural situation, so there may or may not be problems with some of them. Some people see them as a cookie cutter pattern and go, like there's a literary critic, Joseph Campbell, who I almost assigned, but I assigned Jung instead. Joseph Campbell wrote Hero of a Thousand Faces, and he looked at every single myth and every single religion, but mostly Western ones, to say all of these follow Jungian archetypes. Here's the hero, here's the anima, so this is proof that archetypes exist. But that assumes that archetype theory is true, right? So I would say it's a theory, but it's not an assumed truth. It's an important point. More stuff y'all want to talk about? I don't want to take discussion away from you.
Oh, we just have one more question, is what role has religion played thus far in Dune? I mean, there hasn't been a whole lot of discussion of it, but could you see anywhere it's popped up at all? Start over here.
The way that the Freemen kind of have the high regard of the Bene Gesserit, so much so as in declared Jessica as the one, and gave her the cryo knife, I think it was called? Something like that. Chris knife? Yeah, Chris knife. Something like that. Anyways. And having that, the whole religious aspect of the knife of once it's unsheathed, it must draw blood before it can be put back in, which was immediately broken, but regardless. And just how the Freemen kind of just looked upon the Bene Gesserit because of what the Bene Gesserit did previously, the whole build-up of superstitions. Can't remember what it's called.
I would say that, like, so far it seems that the religious, like, I guess the ideas that they have in the book that are, like, supposedly mimic, like, realistic religion ideas are more or less for the sake of, like, preserving humanity. because like we talk about like new machines and everything, and like from what we've seen, like most of the religious texts has been like basically don't make machines or like don't allow them to be made in this way because they're trying to preserve like people's safety. So that's like I guess the most common way to
It seems like in Dune, religion has a lot of social control elements to it. Like the Bene Gesserit, they planted these superstitions on Arrakis so that they can come in and impose their own will if need be. And Lady Jessica has done that by becoming the One. And so I think it's a little bit of like political commentary on the role of religion in society in some regard.
There's also like the Orange Catholic Bible, which in the appendix, like it said, it has some elements of like religions that are actually like here, like Buddhist, Islamic traditions, and like Catholicism and stuff.
Mhm.
So like, yeah, I think real religions are kind of referenced.
I just thought of this, but I think it's important to note that the entire system that Dune is taking place in allows the Bene Gesserit to have this kind of monopoly on birthing, I guess. I don't know how far back these superstitions go, but I guess it must be at least well rooted, giving the Bene Gesserit this much power just to have a complete monopoly over this completely natural aspect.
They also seem to have a